Thank you very much, Chair Rivera. I want to thank you. I want to thank Howard Teach, who's here and who is the most innovative human being I know. He's got an idea a minute, and Landing Day is an excellent one. Also want to thank the chair of the Jewish Caucus and all of the sponsors, including Dinowitz, Rivera, Ressler, Menon, Valenikov, have all signed on, and I hope others do. So as you heard, this calls as a resolution on the council to recognize Landing Day every September, which is why we're trying to do it so quickly this September, to commemorate the 23 Sephardic Jews who arrived in 1654, having been preceded 1 month prior by 3 Ashkenazi Jews, and together founded the first Jewish community in North America. This week, September 7th, 1654, a few days before Rosh Hashanah, the group of 23 men, women, and children landed near the southern tip of the Dutch colony of New Amsterdam, where the Staten Island ferry is. 370 years later, New York City is home to 1.6 million Jews, more than any other city worldwide. And of course, we're one of the greatest urban centers of Jewish life. The landing is marked by the Jewish Terracentury Monument and Flagstaff, where we celebrated last year. It's placed in the Peter Minuit Plaza by the state of New York and dedicated in 1955 in recognition of the celebration of the arrival of the first Jews in North America. That year, events were held for months across New York and the U.S. to celebrate. But in the decades since, there have only been a handful of gatherings at the site, and I want to again thank Howard Teach for bringing us together more recently. I just also want to say that Ruth Messinger, who is of course well known to all of us, wanted to recognize his contribution and say how much she too appreciates it. So I just want to mention that she's not able to be here today, but she wanted to send her very best. She said, this is a fantastic resolution recognizing both the history of Jews in New York and the history of New York City as a city that has thrived and continues to thrive because of the contribution of immigrants. She's very focused on immigrants, if you know Ruth. These were among New York's earliest immigrants, saved by being allowed to stay because the Dutch East India Company overrode the anti-Semitic position of Governor Peter Stuyvesant. It was an important victory for tolerance, welcome, and the building of a diverse city, said Ruth Messinger. And thank you very much also to Schuler Warren Puder, Chief of Staff of my office, for making this possible. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. I also want to recognize that we've been joined by Councilmember Carr and Councilmember Hanif. Excellent. I would also like to thank my staff as well as the committee staff who worked on preparing this legislation, including Katie Lowe, my Chief of Staff, Eddie Amador, my Director of Legislation, Christina Yelamati, the committee's counsel, Regina Paul, the committee's policy analyst who also drafted the resolution, and Sandra Gray, the committee's financial analyst. I will now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that a quorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant-at-Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant-at-Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic, Resolution 438. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant-at-Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov or within 72 hours of this hearing, audio and video recordings will not be accepted. And with that, I will ask Christina to call the first panel.
Our first panel will be Cheryl Fishman, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Aryeh Lebowitz, and Julie Hirsch.
And while you all are getting settled, if there's anyone else that would like to submit testimony, I actually welcome you to join this panel. Make sure you fill out a slip and hand it to the Sergeant at Arms as soon as possible.
I'm okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Rivera and members of the Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations Committee. I'm Cheryl Fishbein, Chair of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. On behalf of JCRC of New York, which is the primary community relations agency for the Jewish people in the New York metropolitan area, we thank you for the opportunity to testify regarding resolution number 438 of 2024, relating to recognizing Landing Day in the second week of September annually to commemorate the arrival of the first Jewish community in New Amsterdam in 1654, and to celebrate the continuing importance of the Jewish community in the city of New York. Let me begin by saying that the area comprising our great city has had a Jewish presence for 370 years. The Jewish people are clearly no strangers to New York, and this resolution, which seeks to recognize and honor Landing Day, is a fitting recognition of the fact, making the arrival of these 23 Sephardic Jews in September 1654 in New Amsterdam, now Lower Manhattan. They were the first group of refugees fleeing persecution from the Portuguese after the conquest of Brazil. Those 23, plus 3 Ashkenazi Jews who arrived 1 month earlier, were the start of the Jewish history in North America. In the centuries since, our city and its image have been shaped and reshaped in no small part by its Jewish citizens, from Emma Lazarus to mayors A. Beam and Ed Koch, to Irving Berlin, to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and countless others. Our city and country have been indelibly influenced by what the Jewish community has accomplished and how we've worked with other people and other communities, what we've started, and the positive differences that we have made. Indeed, the story in North America and the Jewish story in North America is the story of any and every immigrant group seeking a better life, a life fleeing persecution or wanting basic freedoms. Resolution 438 seeks to simply recognize that the Jewish community has been part of the fabric of life in this city, in our city, since its earliest inception. With New York City's Jewish population now reaching over 1.6 million, more than any other city in the world, now is the time to salute the courage, tenacity, and perseverance of the earliest Jewish settlers and honor the achievements of their descendants. The Jewish Community Relations Council of New York urges this committee to pass Resolution 438 and recognize Landing Day in the second week of September annually to commemorate the arrival of the first Jewish community in New Amsterdam in 1654 and to celebrate the continuing importance and vibrancy of the Jewish community in the city of New York. We'd like to thank the committee, its chair, again for convening this hearing today and to express our appreciation for this resolution to Council Member Gail Brewer as well. And just, I have to add personally, I am a child of immigrants and have become a Jewish person inside the fabric of New York City, and I have to say, I'm so proud, and I'm so proud to be here to help, to encourage you to vote for this resolution.
Thank you so much. Just want to say we've been joined by Councilmember Hudson, and I'll say online. And I think that was it. Okay, and just want to remind everybody that there is a timer, and when you hear the bell go off, just, you don't have to stop in the middle of your sentence, but just wrap up your last thought. Okay, and thank you so much for your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair Rivera, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify. My name is Julie Hirsch, and I am the Senior Director of Institutional Giving at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust. The Museum of Jewish Heritage wholeheartedly endorses Resolution 438, recognizing Landing Day in the second week of September annually to commemorate the arrival of the first Jewish community in New Amsterdam in 1654. As an institution dedicated to remembrance and education, we believe that recognizing the unique history of the Jewish immigration experience is unequivocally important. At our museum, we strive to do just that. The Museum of Jewish Heritage educates diverse visitors about Jewish life before, during, and after the Holocaust. We are committed to the crucial mission of teaching about what unchecked hate and bigotry can do. We are dedicated to education, remembrance, and serving the public by providing Holocaust education. The museum is an essential resource for combating bigotry and anti-Semitism in New York City. We provide free admission for New York City public schools, CUNY students, and ID NYC cardholders. Our Holocaust curriculum, developed with support from the Department of Education, is a free and trustworthy resource for teachers. In 2023, we opened our first ever exhibition for younger students, Courage to Act, Rescue in Denmark. This world-class exhibition has expanded our free Holocaust education programs to younger students for the first time. Additionally, as part of our commitment to removing barriers, the museum subsidizes free transportation to and from our museum for schools in need so that all can access our educational resources regardless of means. Last year, the museum launched its first ever Anti-Semitism Frequently Asked Questions, a free online resource for educators our team developed in response to a growing need for materials they can use to discuss anti-Semitism constructively with students. The museum also operates an annual interfaith living museum in which Muslim and Jewish students come together to educate one another about their faith and cultural practices. This month, we will open our first ever hate speech-focused exhibition titled Speaking Up, Confronting Hate Speech. This exhibition will underscore the power of words that leads to discrimination, persecution, and mass violence. Rooted in the museum's crucial mission to fight anti-Semitism and bigotry through education, this exhibition highlights the relationship between hatred of Jews and identity-based discrimination in many forms.
You can just wrap up.
Okay. We thank the committee and the entire City Council for your support, and we look forward to commemorating Landing Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Aryeh Leibowitz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Jewish Labor Committee. I'll get back to that in a moment. I want to thank everybody who sponsored this resolution, crafted it, staff as well as members of this committee, and who are supportive of it, and I hope that you all are. My apologies. A number of people have said over the years when they're speaking, you may have heard some of this before, but you haven't heard it from me. So some of this will duplicate slightly what's been said before. It's not the easiest thing to edit on the fly. But about myself, while we're talking about the mid-1650s, I wasn't born here until 300 years later in Manhattan in 1954, and I'm a son of Manhattan parents who were also both born in New York. But three of their parents were immigrants from other countries. As we're talking about Landing Day and Peter Stuyvesant and so on, let me also add that I grew up in Stuyvesant Town, and I'm a proud graduate of Stuyvesant High School, the one on 15th Street. I never learned about Landing Day until recently, although the arrival of 24 Jews from Recife in Brazil into New Amsterdam is something that came to my attention a few years ago during my studies at Harper College in Binghamton, New York. But that's why this resolution is important, because a lot of people don't know about this history. Others have noted and will note that the modest wave of Jews to our shores from even before it was called New York, people escaping persecution and trying to make better lives for themselves and their children, were part of successive waves of Jewish and non-Jewish immigrants of a wide range of ethnicities, cultures, faiths, and countries of origin, from the 1650s and before to now. The prejudice and opposition of some leaders to letting these Jewish refugees into New Amsterdam has been repeated over the decades and centuries, to well to now. And I could go on further. It'll be in the sent-in testimony, but I very much urge your support of this, which will be of significance not only to the Jewish New Yorkers, but to all New Yorkers from now going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard, make sure you, we can hear you loud and clear.
Hello? Hi, I'm Howard Teach. I'm founding chair on this Manhattan Jewish Historical Initiative. And we've felt for a long time. We had a ceremony there last year. We just had a tour yesterday that wound up down at the Monument and Flagstaff, which is in Peter Minwee Park, and felt there's a need that was put in for the 300th anniversary of the Jewish community in New York. I want to start by actually where I usually end, just for perspective. We consider New York probably one of the greatest 5 Jewish civilizations in our 5,000-year history. Just so you understand the importance of what's happened here. My family came over in the 1880s. Some were in Brownsville, others in Lower East Side. So there's been a long history here, and it's not just the few things we've been involved in, whether it be Broadway, Tin Pan Alley, culture, whether it be business, whether it be hospitals and healthcare. It just expands out and out in terms of other groups that we've been involved in. We've participated in partners because of what we've gone through, and it's been thousands of years of both celebration, of being in positions where we controlled our own lives, other times where we were persecuted. That's part of the story of them coming up from Recife, when they were living a great life until they weren't, and they had to move very quickly. And one of the important things for now, I would think, is in terms of we were refugees. We came here because we had no other place to go, basically. And we had other choices, but not really. And so what we celebrate, and what this is all about, is we celebrate freedom. And we celebrate what New York City and America has given to us throughout these 370 years. I want to end just by thanking the council after 15 years because they contributed to this. This is still the first and only Jewish heritage and history map of the city. Has the whole story on the back, and the city council provided money for that this year. And speaking to the chancellor, we got this introduced in the curriculum in the school system. That they're now using it. And it was the first time that they really are talking about the current history. So the significance now of this resolution, at a time that it's very, very important, is it brings forth the positive nature of who the Jewish community is, what we want to contribute, how we should be discussed, and I'll put it in as the last thing that I've been wishing for 15 years, that we have a cultural tourism program in New York for the Jewish community. It's in every city in the world where they don't even have Jews. And here we have more than any place else. It would create an enormous economic boon to New York, and I would hope the council at some point would take it up. So this also would have that added feature in terms of your passage. We thank you, Gail. You've been unbelievable in putting this forward, and Carlene, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank you all for your testimony, for your contribution to the city, what you're doing in terms of awareness and education for people of all ages, and of course for taking the time to come to City Hall and provide your testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from the panel? Okay, thank you. there's anyone else that would like to provide testimony that has not, please submit a paper. No? Okay. All right. Well, thanks again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Is Billy close by?
Right here.
Oh,
Snuck in.
hey. I think we are now ready for the vote, Billy.
Good afternoon, William Martin, Committee Clerk, roll call vote, Committee on Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations. On Resolution 438, Chair Rivera.
I vote aye.
Lewis.
I vote aye. Congratulations, Councilmember Brewer, and to all the advocates, and I'd like to be added onto the bill. Thanks.
Thank you. Hanif.
I vote aye.
Hanks. Hudson.
Aye, and I would also like to be added onto the bill. Thank you.
Osei.
Aye, and I would also like to be added onto the bill.
Thank you. Ung.
I vote aye.
Williams. Carr.
With congratulations to Councilmember Brewer, I vote aye.
By a vote of 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, resolution has been adopted by the committee.
Well, I also want to congratulate Gail Brewer. And I, of course, want to thank the advocates again for being here and for taking the time to make this happen. I want to thank my fellow committee members for showing up and for just being great, great, great to work with. Okay, and with that, we adjourn the hearing. Thank you to committee staff and my team as well. Appreciate you very much.